So sure enough, we're at the point where we're going to do our first project. Are you ready? It's a simple calculator, but it is built on everything we learned and also gives you an idea of some of the power of this language. So a calculator is pretty much one of the first things a programmer will learn how to build in their introduction to coding. Our calculator will be just doing some basic arithmetic operations, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, as well as modulus. So first, let's create a new Java project and specify the project name, and we'll call it calculator. Now, don't change the other options, just click the next button. Now in this section, just uncheck create module info.java file, and then press the finish button. So in this project, just right-click on the source folder and select New Class, and then specify the package name as Calculator and the class name as Calculator, and then select the checkbox to add it to the main method. Now, as you may recall, or know, calculators take inputs from users, and it makes a calculation, right? So that means we need to take inputs from the user by using the scanner class. And in the first print method, we'll write a title for the program output. And let's call it calculator, all uppercase. And we get a message to enter two numbers using the print method. So we'll declare two variables, number 1, number 2, with the int type, and assign nextInt as our method of scanner class to these variables. Okay, so we show a message to be chosen in an operation. Now the user may enter one of the plus, minus, asterisk, forward slash, and %mark symbols. So also, we need to declare a char type operator, which will signify the operation that we want the calculator to perform. And assign the first element in char at method of the next method of the scanner class to this variable. The chart at method is used for taking a character input in Java. And we need to declare a variable result with the double type. Its initial value is 0.0. Okay, so if you're with me so far, let's start to write our switch case statement. Now, the switch receives the operator variable and, depending upon what it is, chooses a certain case. The first case value is additive operator in a single quotation mark. So we'll do the addition of two numbers. We'll assign number 1 plus number 2 to the variable result, and we'll want to use the break keyword. So let's copy the code and make the changes for the case values and other arithmetic operations, right? And now we'll use the subtraction operator, multiplication operator, division operator, and modulus operator. So we have 5 operators. Now, if the user enters anything except these 5 operators, we should warn the user in the default code block. So in the default part, we'll display invalid choice operator, as our message to the user by using the print method. So now let's display number 1, operator number 2, and the value of the result by using the print method. Now, it's better to close the scanner object by using the close method. Okay, so let's run the code. So we'll enter 12 and 13 for our two numbers, and then we'll choose the additive operator. Result is 12 plus 13 equals 25.0. Dun, da, da, da. Okay, so let's run the code again. We'll enter 12 and 7. And let's choose the subtraction operator. Result is 12 minus 7 equals 5.0. Okay, let's run the code again. We'll enter 13 and 3. And let's choose the multiplication operator. The result is 13 multiplied by 3 equals 39.0. So far, so good. So let's run the code again. And we enter 15 and 5. So now let's choose the division operator, resulting in 15 divided by 5 equals 3.0. Alrighty then, so let's run the code, and we'll enter 8 and 5. So now let's choose the modulus operator, resulting in 8% of 5 equals 3.0. Okay, and finally, let's run the code, and we'll enter, 12 and 4. And we'll choose the illegal operator. Result is invalid operator choice. So this message is true. But also we get 12 illegal operator 4 equals 0. So this is actually a wrong message to the user. The user shouldn't see this statement. So in order to solve this problem, instead of using a break keyword, we'll use the return keyword in the default code block. You got it? So the return keyword is used to exit the current method. The break keyword is used to exit a switch statement. All right? Return keyword, exit the current method. Break, exit a switch statement. Cool. So we're going to use the return keyword in the next few exercises. So let's go ahead and run the code again, and we'll enter 12 and 4 and choose an illegal operator. And sure enough, we get only the invalid operator choice message. Good job. We finished our first project quite successfully. So let's move on. For loop. So when you need to execute a block of code a whole bunch of times, we use looping statements. So first off, we're going to learn how to use the for loop in Java. The for loop is a control flow statement that iterates a part of the program multiple times. So the general form of the for statement can be expressed like you see here in the slide. Initialization declares the initial value of the controlling variable. The controlling variable can be defined in line with the for loop or defined previously. Typically, the for loop uses an integer variable. The condition is a Boolean expression. So in other words, it must result in either a true or false output. If the condition is true, the loop continues to execute. Relational operators are what's used in the Boolean expression. So after each execution of the statements, the control variable is updated according to increment or decrement. Also, you'll see here on the slide the for loop execution flow. The first step, In for loop, the initialization part only executes once. The second step, condition in the for loop, is evaluated on each iteration. So if the condition is true, then the loop body gets executed. If the condition returns false, statements in the loop body do not execute, and the control gets transferred to the next statement in the program after the for loop. Third step, after each execution of the for loop's body, the increment-decrement part of the for loop updates the value of the controlling variable. And then the last step. After the third step, the control jumps to the second step and the condition is reevaluated. You'll see why in a minute. So let's do up some examples with the for loop. So in the exercise project, right-click on the source folder and select New and Class. Specify the package name as loop and the class name as for loop, and then select the checkbox for the main method. So let's start to write a program that prints int numbers from 1 to 10 by using the for loop. So we'll declare a variable I. We initialize this variable in for loop. Our condition is I less than or equal to 10, and it increments by 1. And we can use the print method to write our numbers to our screen. All right, so let's run the code. And you see the numbers from 1 to 10. So here, the variable I is declared and initialized to 1. Then the test condition is evaluated, and if this condition is true, the body of the for loop is executed and prints 1 on the screen. Then the update expression I++ is executed. Now the value of I is increased to 2. And again, the test condition is evaluated. 2 is less than 10, so the condition is true and the body of the for loop is executed and then prints 2 on the screen. You with me? The iteration process runs until I is 11. When I is 11, since 11 is greater than 10, the test condition is false and the for loop terminates. So now let's write a program to find the sum of the numbers from 1 to 5. We'll declare a variable sum with the initial value 0. So in the for loop, we can use variable k, and we'll declare and initialize variable k with the 0 value. So our test condition is k is less than or equal to 5, and it increments by 1. And then we assign the sum plus k to the variable sum with the add and assignment operator. So the value of k is increased until k is greater than 5. All right, so let's print the value of k in the for loop by using our print method. And then finally, we'll use the print method after for loop to display the sum of numbers. Okay, so let's run the code. And you see the values of key and sum of numbers is 15. All right, then, so let's write a program to find the sum of even numbers from 1 to 10. So just go back and copy the previous code, and now make changes for the test condition and the increment-decrement part. Test condition is 10, and k increments by 2. So the variable k is always an even number. And then finally, we'll use the print method after the for loop to display the sum of the even numbers. Okay, so let's run the code. Now, you see the values of the key and the sum of even numbers, which is 30. For each loop. So in Java, the for each loop is another form of a for loop to work with arrays and collections. So we can say that it is an enhanced form of the for loop. You'll see what I mean. The use of the enhanced for loop is easier to write, and it makes your code more readable. So if you look at the syntax here, first we declare an array with initial values, and then we use the for each loop. So instead of an array, we can also use lists. In for parentheses, the first element is a single item from the array, and the second item is the list of an array. Colon is used between them. Please note here that if you do want to use the index of the element inside the loop, you have to use the for loop, and you cannot use the for each loops. So in our example, it'll iterate through each element in the numbers variable, storing it in the number variable and executing the loop body. So let's have a look and see how that works. We'll do up a few examples with the for each loop. In the exercise project, right-click on the loop package and select New Class and specify the class name as for each loop and select the checkbox for the main method. Now first, we'll do an example to iterate through elements of an array using the standard for loop. So let's declare a char array. Its name will be letters, and its initial value, let's call it H, E, L, L, and O. Now let's start to write the for loop. In for loop, we can use the variable I, and we'll declare and initialize variable I with the value of 0. And our test condition is I less than length of array letters, and we'll increase the value of I by 1. So let's print the elements of the array by using the index in the print method. All right, so let's run the code. And you see there the element of the array in the console. Now we can perform the same example using a for each loop. So let's copy the declaration part of the array from the previous code, and we'll start to write the for each loop. So in for parentheses, we declare a variable item with char type, and we'll add a colon as well as the letters array. Now let's add the variable item into the print method. Okay, so now we can run the code, and you'll see there the elements of the letters in the array in the console. So you can see the difference between the loops, right? In the for each loop, the code has reduced significantly. Also, we don't use the index and counter in the for each loop. So now let's expand in our example. Let's take a closer look at how the for each loop works. The for each loop iterates through each item in a given letters array, and it stores each item in the variable item and then executes the body of the loop. So let's do another example by using the for each loop. We'll write a program to calculate the sum of all elements of an integer array. Let's declare an integer array and call it numbers with initial values 6, 4, 3, and 5. And then we'll declare a variable sum. Initial value is 0. In, for parentheses, we declare a variable num with int type, and we add a colon and numbers array. Now we assign a sum plus num to the variable sum with add and assignment operator. So let's print the value of the num in the for loop by using the print method. And then finally, we'll use the print method after the for loop to display the sum of the numbers. All right, so let's run the code. And you see the values of the num, and sum of the numbers is 18.